Vincent Harlow sat in his gray cubicle on the 14th floor, surrounded by spreadsheets that made his colleagues' eyes glaze over. For 7 years, he had been processing expense reports. But Vincent saw something different in those columns of numbers. He saw stories. He saw the truth. Every Friday afternoon, Vincent noticed something peculiar. Quarterly reports showed steady profits, yet buried in the individual accounts, he detected tiny inconsistencies. A lunch meeting that cost $300. A hotel room where no meetings were scheduled. Travel expenses that didn't match any project timeline. Most would ignore it. But Vincent understood what Jung wrote about the shadow self. Organizations had shadows too. He started documenting everything. His colleague Raymond stopped by. "You're still here early, Vinny. Don't you ever take a break from those spreadsheets?" Vincent looked up. "Raymond, have you ever noticed how the executive travel expenses spike right before quarterly reports?" Raymond laughed. "That's just how business works. The big shots fly around, make deals. Don't overthink it." But Vincent couldn't stop. That evening, he compiled the data. The pattern was unmistakable. Systematic embezzlement, hidden within legitimate expenses. The total approached $2 million.
He printed the report and placed it in an envelope. His hands trembled slightly. Vincent knew what happened to people who saw too much, who pointed out truths that powerful people wanted to keep buried. Jung had warned about this danger. The person who sees what others cannot becomes isolated, suspected, sometimes even destroyed. That night, Vincent stood outside the CEO's office with his envelope. The building was empty except for the cleaning crew. He could walk away. He could pretend he never noticed the patterns. He could be like everyone else who chose comfort over truth. Instead, he slid the envelope under the door. 3 days later, Vincent was called into a meeting. The room was filled with lawyers, executives, and 2 federal investigators. They asked him to explain everything. Sienna Walsh worked in a cramped studio apartment in the Arts District, where rent was cheap and inspiration was supposed to flow freely. For 3 years, she had been creating paintings that nobody wanted to buy. Gallery owners called her work too intense or uncomfortable. Her art school friends had moved on to corporate design jobs, but Sienna couldn't stop painting what she saw. The problem was that Sienna saw too much. When she attended dinner parties, she didn't just see people eating and laughing. She saw the tension in a wife's shoulders when her husband spoke. She noticed the forced brightness in someone's smile when they discussed their promotion. She observed the micro-expressions that flickered across faces before the socially acceptable mask snapped back into place. Her paintings reflected these hidden emotional landscapes. A family portrait where the shadows beneath each person revealed their secret selves. A corporate boardroom where the walls bled with unspoken resentments. A wedding scene where the bride's reflection in the mirror showed something entirely different from her public face. One afternoon, Sienna set up her easel in Riverside Park. She had decided to paint the people around her. An elderly man sat on a bench feeding pigeons. To most observers, he appeared content, peaceful, enjoying retirement. But Sienna saw the profound loneliness in how he scattered the breadcrumbs, the desperate need for connection in each gentle gesture toward the birds. She painted him surrounded by shadows that reached out like hands, trying to grasp something just beyond reach. The pigeons in her painting weren't just birds, but fragments of memories, each one carrying away pieces of his past. A jogger passed by and glanced at her canvas. "That's really depressing," the woman said before running on.
Sienna didn't take offense. She understood that most people preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Society functioned on a collective agreement to ignore the depths, to skim along the surface where everything seemed manageable and safe. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother asked when she would give up this painting nonsense and get a real job. Sienna set the phone aside and kept working. That evening, a woman in an expensive coat stopped to watch Sienna paint. She stood silently for nearly 20 minutes, studying the canvas. Finally, she spoke. "How do you see that?" Sienna paused. "See what? The truth. The things people hide. I've spent 40 years pretending everything is fine. My marriage, my career. But you just painted exactly what I feel inside." 2 months later, Sienna's first exhibition opened. The gallery filled with people who had spent their lives feeling isolated. They stood in front of her paintings and wept. They bought every piece. But success brought its own burden. Seeing what others cannot means bearing witness to pain. James Okoye had been teaching third grade at Westbrook Elementary for 12 years. His classroom was organized chaos. But James had developed a skill that set him apart. He could read the stories that children tried to hide. On a Tuesday morning, Thomas Brennan arrived. Hood pulled up, eyes fixed on his desk. Previous teachers noted behavioral problems. James saw something else entirely. He noticed how Thomas flinched when a book dropped, the way his hands shook. These weren't signs of a bad student. These were survival mechanisms. Thomas drew elaborate pictures, always the same scene. A small house, dark windows, a figure standing outside looking in. James asked, "The person standing outside, that's you, isn't it?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. "I don't really have a home anymore." James felt the familiar ache. Once you recognized the pain, you became responsible for it. He spent months working with Thomas. By February, Thomas was reading above grade level. He smiled occasionally. Other teachers attributed it to medication. But James knew the truth. Thomas hadn't changed. He had simply been seen. That afternoon, Thomas brought James a drawing. It showed the same house, but this time the door was open. The figure was walking in. "Thank you for seeing me," Thomas said quietly. James kept that drawing forever. Jung had been right about the danger, but also the necessity. Someone had to be willing to see what others missed, to bear witness to the struggles that society preferred to ignore.